Welcome to the deep dive. I want you to think about the last time you found yourself under just immense, suffocating pressure to perform perfectly.
Oh, yeah.
Not just, a tight deadline on a Tuesday afternoon. I mean, a moment where the stakes were incredibly high, everyone's watching you, and the clock is just actively ticking down.
Right. It's a terrible feeling.
It really is. What actually happens to your body in that scenario? Your heart rate spikes, your vision literally narrows into what we call tunnel vision.
You get that real biological fight or flight response.
Exactly. And your brain suddenly struggles to execute the most basic fundamental things. You kind of become a clumsier, more frantic version of yourself.
Yeah, it's a profound physiological shift. When the sympathetic nervous system takes over in those high-stakes environments, fine motor skills begin to degrade, like almost immediately.
Wow, really?
Oh, absolutely. And your cognitive processing, specifically your ability to sequence complex tasks and recognize subtle hazards, it just falls right off a cliff.
So you just can't think straight.
Right. The brain prioritizes basic survival over any kind of precision.
Well, that physiological shift is exactly why we're diving into a truly fascinating piece of source material today. We have a document, and it's simply titled Ground Ladders Overview.
Such a modest title for what it actually is.
Seriously, it's a highly specific, intense training and practical exam strategy guide. It outlines the exact performance objectives for candidates who are being evaluated on how to safely deploy, climb, and secure these massive extension ladders.
And we should probably clarify right up front that this is not like a basic safety pamphlet.
No, definitely not.
It is a strict, down-to-the-second evaluation rubric. It's explicitly designed to test a candidate's physical mechanics and their psychological focus simultaneously.
Right.
And they do this under the very stress conditions you just described.
So, our mission today is to unpack this absolute gauntlet of an exam. We're going to look at the intense physical precision required. But more importantly, we're going to discover what this extreme checklist can teach you, the listener, about managing complex tasks under pressure in your own life.
Because there's a lot to learn here, even for the rest of us.
Exactly. Even if you never have to carry a massive extension ladder or execute a technical maneuver like a leg lock, understanding how these candidates manage catastrophic risk in working memory will fundamentally change how you approach your own high-stress projects.
Well, the pressure begins before the physical exertion even starts.
How so?
The very first thing the source outlines is the temporal boundary of the exam. After the instructions are given, the clock starts the absolute exact second the student touches any tools, equipment, or the ladder itself.
Wait, the exact second?
The exact second. There is zero warm-up period. The physical contact initiates the evaluation, which, it forces the candidate to be completely mentally locked in before they move a single muscle.
So before they even lay a finger on the equipment, there's a strict psychological and verbal protocol they have to establish.
Right.
The source outlines what it calls a mandatory scene survey. The candidate must scan the immediate area for uneven terrain, holes, debris, overhead obstructions, power lines, and tree limbs.
And here's the kicker. They aren't allowed to simply look for these hazards.
Right. They have to verbalize the survey. They have to literally speak their hazard recognition out loud to the examiner.
Yeah, the document places a really heavy emphasis on continuous communication here. It explicitly states that the goal is to communicate what is being checked so the examiner never has to guess.
Right. No guessing allowed.
Exactly. Whether a safety requirement was recognized or not, vocalizing eliminates assumption entirely from the evaluation process.
Right.
If an evaluator has to guess if you saw the power line, you've failed the objective.
That is so intense. It reminds me of the concept of calling out in a frantic, high-end restaurant kitchen.
Oh, sure, like behind and all that.
Exactly. You have chefs yelling corner or behind or hot as they move through a crowded line. It creates this invisible map of safety in a highly chaotic space.
That's a great analogy.
But, in a kitchen, if you fail to call out, the worst case scenario is usually like a dropped plate or maybe a minor burn. With a massive metal ladder, the margin for physical error is zero.
Right. You miss a high voltage power line and the result is catastrophic.
But I do want to push back on this a little, or just challenge the necessity of the verbalization rule.
Okay, go for it.
Why does the examiner need to physically hear the hazard check? If an examiner is standing a few feet away and they can clearly see the candidate physically looking up, looking down, carefully scanning the terrain, wouldn't that visual confirmation be enough to prove they're checking the scene?
I mean, it seems redundant until we look at the reality of human cognition under stress,
Yeah.
which is exactly what the rubric is designed to expose.
Yep.
Seeing is a passive function, right? But speaking is an active cognitive function. When a candidate is highly stressed, their heart rate is elevated. They can look directly at a power line and not actually perceive it.
Because their brain is overwhelmed by all the upcoming physical tasks.
Precisely. By forcing the candidate to vocalize, to say out loud, surveying the area for terrain hazards and overhead obstructions, and then verbally confirming area appears clear, it forces the brain to actively process the visual data.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it closes the cognitive loop and literally forces them into the present moment.
That makes so much sense. It suggests the verbalization acts as kind of an override switch for the tunnel vision we talked about earlier. By speaking, you force your brain to acknowledge the environment rather than just staring blankly at it.
Exactly. And the source takes this principle even further with what it defined as a critical exam requirement.
Right, the ladder placement.
Yes. Every single ladder that is placed must be verbally verified by the candidate before anyone steps on it. They must state out loud either the ladder is safe to climb or the ladder is secure to climb.
And if they don't?
The document notes that failing to speak this specific phrase can result in an immediate deduction or outright failure, completely depending on the evaluator's discretion.
A potential failure just for omitting a single sentence? I mean, the ladder itself could be perfectly placed, mathematically flawless in its angle, but if the candidate doesn't announce its safety to the examiner, the physical perfection just doesn't matter.
Because in high-stakes, hazardous environments, an uncommunicated safety check is treated as a non-existent safety check.
Right.
If you did not declare it safe, the protocol assumes you do not actually know if it is safe.
Wow. Okay, so once that cognitive loop is closed and the hazard map is verbally established, the physical reality sets in. The candidate actually has to move the equipment.
Which is no small feat.
No, not at all. And reading through these sources, the physical movement is entirely divorced from brute strength. It reads more like a highly calculated choreography designed to systematically prevent failure.
Yeah, it's basically an exercise in physics and maintaining mechanical advantage.
Yeah.
The lifting mechanics are foundational but critical. Back straight, bend at the knees, lift of the legs, not the arms and back.
Standard heavy lifting protocol.
Exactly. You are preserving the body's integrity for the climb.
But then the source details the carry itself, which is highly specific. When carrying the ladder, the butt, which is the heavy base of the ladder, must face forward in the direction of travel.
Right.
And furthermore, the front end has to be slightly tilted down toward the ground. The explicit reason given is so the candidate's vision remains completely unobstructed.
Which makes sense.
Yeah, they're maneuvering a massive heavy object, but their visual field is treated as the most important asset.
And as they transition from the horizontal carry to vertically raising and extending the ladder, the primary directive shifts to continuous control.
Continuous control.
Right. The rubric mandates maintaining physical contact with the ladder at all times during the transition. They have to lock the internal mechanisms, which are called the dogs.
The dogs.
Yeah, they secure the extension in place. And they have to secure the rope, known as the halyard. And all of this must be done while keeping hands firmly on the equipment so a sudden gust of wind or a slip doesn't send the ladder crashing down.
The rules for actually climbing the ladder, specifically when the candidate is carrying a tool in one hand, are fascinating to me. The source lays down a remarkably strict mandate here.
It really does.
It dictates that the candidate's hands must slide continuously along the beams of the ladder, maintaining constant contact with those beams, and they must not use the horizontal rungs.
Just to help you visualize this, the beams are the long vertical side rails of the ladder that run from the ground all the way up to the top. As opposed to the horizontal rungs that act as the steps.
Right. And I mean, I was trying to map this onto a daily experience. Imagine trying to climb a really steep, narrow staircase in your house. But you are forbidden from using the handrails. Instead, you have to press your palms flat against the smooth vertical wall next to the stairs and slide your hands upward as you climb the steps.
That sounds awful.
It feels incredibly counterintuitive. If I'm climbing 30 feet into the air, my instinct is absolutely to grab the horizontal rungs. I want to wrap my fingers around a solid object.
Naturally.
So why is grabbing the rungs or releasing and re-grasping the beam explicitly singled out in the document as a major failure point?
Well, think about the mechanics of a discrete hold versus a continuous hold. To move your hand from one horizontal rung to the next higher one, you must completely let go of the ladder for a split second.
Okay, yeah.
You have to open your grip, Reach through empty space and close your hand again around the next rung.
But isn't a solid closed fist grip for 99% of the climb better than a sliding friction grip 100% of the time? I mean, a closed fist feels structurally stronger and more secure than just sliding a hand along a vertical rail.
It definitely feels stronger psychologically, but mechanically, it introduces a severe vulnerability.
Really?
Yeah. That microsecond where your hand is moving through the air between rungs is a gap in your physical connection to the ladder. It is a moment of zero control.
I see.
If your heavy boot slips on a wet rung at the exact millisecond your hand is transitioning through the air, you have no anchor. You will fall.
Oh, wow.
However, if you press your hands or arms against the vertical beams and slide them upward, you maintain an unbroken, continuous point of physical contact.
So the friction against the beam keeps you anchored even if your feet give out.
Exactly. Sliding continuously ensures a permanent physical safety loop. Releasing and regrasping introduces discrete moments of extreme vulnerability.
That makes a lot of sense.
By outlawing the grasping of rungs, the exam overrides the human instinct to grab and forces a mechanically safer interaction with the equipment.
You know, that concept of continuous momentum versus discrete stop and start actions is incredibly applicable to how we work. Think about managing a massive project. If you are constantly stopping, letting go of the details, and then trying to regrasp the context a week later, you introduce these massive gaps where mistakes happen.
Oh, that's so true.
But if you maintain a continuous sliding touch point, just keeping a steady hand on the pulse of the project, you're far less likely to lose your footing.
That continuous physical loop is crucial for the ascent. But reaching the top of the ladder introduces an entirely different cognitive and physical burden.
Whereas now you're up there.
Right. You're transitioning from the act of climbing to the act of operating at a dangerous height.
Which brings us to the high-stakes operations phase. The document details something called the leg lock evolution, as well as the protocols for victim assistance down ladder.
Both very intense maneuvers.
Yeah, so a leg lock is where a candidate secures themselves to the ladder by wrapping and locking their leg through the rungs. It allows them to work with both hands free.
Right.
They establish the lock, perform their hypothetical task, but the source focuses heavily on the critical removal phase of the lock.
Yes, the descent preparation.
Before they begin their descent, the student must return both feet to the same rung in what the rubric calls a neutral position.
The examiner must clearly see both feet stationary on one single rung, side by side, before any downward movement begins.
And why is that so critical?
Because the psychological and physical power of this forced reset is significant. After performing a physically contorted, highly focused task like a leg lock, the candidate's spatial awareness is skewed.
Oh, sure.
The neutral position is a mandatory pause. It ensures physical balance and cognitive presence are fully restored before initiating a new, dangerous movement sequence.
Man, we desperately need that concept of a neutral reset in our daily lives. Think about finishing a highly contentious, stressful meeting.
We've all been there.
Right. Your brain is essentially in a mental leg lock. You are contorted in stress. And most of us immediately scramble down the metaphorical ladder by opening our email inbox or rushing into the next task while our adrenaline is still spiking.
Which just compounds the stress.
Exactly. What if we forced a neutral reset? Just pausing, putting both feet flat on the floor, taking a breath, and recalibrating before starting the next task.
It prevents the residual stress of one task from corrupting the execution of the next. And that clarity is absolutely necessary because the stakes get even higher in the victim rescue section of the exam.
Right, the
If a candidate is assisting a conscious victim down the ladder, the mechanics change yet again. The rescuer's hands must remain in contact with the back of the beam.
The back of the beams.
Yes.
The strict reminder is highlighted here. While descending with a victim, hands must slide down the back of the beams, never grab the rungs, and never remove and re-grasp the beams.
Right.
I have to push back on this entirely. I mean, I understand the sliding concept when you're climbing alone, but if I am responsible for lowering another living, breathing, conscious human being down a ladder, someone whose extra weight is pulling me forward, my absolute primal instinct would be to grip those horizontal rungs as tightly as humanly possible for leverage.
I get that. Your instinct is trying to solve for strength, but the rubric is solving for stability.
Stability.
Yeah. If you grip the rungs while lowering a heavy victim, the descent becomes a series of rigid steps. You lower the victim, you hold their weight, Then you have to let go of the rung, step down, and grab the next rung.
Okay, I see.
This creates a stop and start jarring motion. Every time you step down, you drop the weight of two people onto the ladder abruptly.
Which creates a bouncing effect on the ladder. And a bouncing extended aluminum ladder with two people on it sounds like a recipe for a structural collapse.
It is highly destabilizing. But I do understand your concern about grip strength. I mean, how does human biology handle a continuous friction break without the hands just giving out from the weight?
Exactly. I feel like my palms would just slide right off the metal.
Well, by placing your hands on the back of the vertical beams, you aren't just relying on grip strength. You are using the rigid structure of the ladder itself.
Oh, because of the angle.
Right. As you lean back slightly, your hands pull against the back of the beams, creating a continuous friction break. You use leverage and body weight to control the descent.
That is brilliant.
It eliminates the jolts entirely. The center of gravity remains stable, and you maintain a fluid, constant control of the victim without ever sacrificing your anchor point.
So you're basically replacing jarring, discrete holds with a continuous, controlled drag. It's a brilliant application of physics over brute force.
Absolutely.
So we have all these incredibly complex physical demands, the lifting mechanics, the unbroken sliding contact, the neutral resets, the fluid friction breaking during a rescue.
It's a lot.
And all of these must be executed flawlessly while the candidate is verbally narrating their safety checks. But there's an invisible pressure bearing down on them through this entire evaluation.
Yes. The ticking clock.
Good clock.
The source clearly dictates that all of this, from the very moment they touch the equipment to the final verbal confirmation, must be completed within a strict 4-minute and 40-second time limit.
4 minutes and 40 seconds. When I was reading the source, I pictured this as a very slow, methodical, deliberate process. But it's actually a sprint.
It really is.
It's like taking a pilot's meticulous, highly detailed pre-flight checklist. But instead of sitting in a stationary, calm cockpit, you're compressing that checklist into a physically exhausting 4.5-minute sprint while carrying 60 pounds of metal.
And the document acknowledges the extreme tension of this time limit. It explicitly states that in a 4.40 window, concise verbalizations are required to work efficiently.
Right.
Candidates do not have the luxury of speaking in paragraphs. They need absolute precision in their communication.
Which brings us to a really interesting tactical detail in the source material. It notes that many candidates in Florida use a highly specific, fast-paced memorization script to get through this without failing.
Oh, the 8-word script.
Exactly. It's an 8-word mental checklist. Scan, lift, contact, lock, secure, climb, neutral, complete.
It's brilliant. If we break down how that maps to the physical requirements, it is a perfect distillation of the rubric.
Walk us through it.
So scan triggers the verbal terrain survey. Lift ensures they use their legs. Contact reminds them to maintain continuous control of the ladder.
Okay, yeah.
Lock secures the dogs. Secure ties off the halyard rope. Climb prompts the verbal safety declaration. Neutral forces the reset position after a leg lock. And finally, complete triggers the ending ritual.
Right, and that ending ritual is highly specific too. To stop that 4.40 clock, the candidate cannot just casually step off the ladder, wipe their brow, and say they're done.
Definitely not.
The document says they must have both feet flat on the ground, the ladder must be entirely under control, they must turn and face the examiner directly and state clearly, ground ladder skill is complete. Only then does the timer stop.
It's very formal.
It is. But I do have a logistical question about relying on an 8-word script. In a timed scenario where every single second is precious, does having to dedicate cognitive processing power to remember and recite an 8-step script actually slow a candidate down?
It's a logical assumption, but the reality of human performance under extreme pressure actually proves the opposite.
Really?
Yeah. The script does not act as a burden. It acts as a cognitive metronome.
A metronome.
Right. When a candidate's heart rate hits 160 beats per minute, the brain's natural response is to rush, to skip critical steps, and to basically succumb to panic.
Right.
The rhythm of scan, lift, contact, lock forces a disciplined cadence. It prevents the candidate from moving faster than their brain can process hazards.
Wow.
The mental framework ensures that the desire for speed never overrides the necessity for safety. It creates a structured environment where efficiency and precision can actually coexist.
A cognitive metronome. The script actually protects them from their own adrenaline.
Wow.
That's incredible. Well, we promised at the start of this deep dive that understanding this intense, highly specific exam would change how you, the listener, approach your own life and your own high-stress projects.
And I think it really does. If we distill the core lessons from this source material, 3 profound principles emerge that apply far beyond ground ladders.
Okay, let's hear them.
First is the life-saving importance of continuous contact. In the document, it's about sliding hands on beams instead of grabbing rungs to avoid those microseconds of vulnerability.
Right.
In a professional context, this translates to maintaining continuous, fluid momentum and communication on a project, rather than relying on sporadic, jarring updates that leave gaps where mistakes can happen.
I love that. And the second major takeaway is the precision of resetting to a neutral position.
Oh, yes.
Just like a candidate must place both feet on one single rung before descending after a complex maneuver, we need to actively build neutral positions into our own chaotic days. We have to create moments where we literally stop, plant our feet, and recalibrate before rushing blindly into the next high-stress task.
Exactly. And the third principle is the power of continuous verbalization to prove and maintain situational awareness.
The override switch.
Right. The exam forces candidates to speak their reality out loud to eliminate assumption and force the brain out of tunnel vision.
Adopting a similar mental framework like your own version of scan, lift, contact, complete could bring incredible clarity and efficiency to whatever high-stakes projects you are navigating right now. It's about creating a structure that prevents panic from taking the wheel when the clock is ticking.
It provides an architecture for success when your biology is actively fighting against your ability to focus.
That leaves us with a final thought I want you to mull over as you go about your day. This exam forces candidates to constantly announce their reality out loud to an examiner. They literally have to look at a piece of equipment and declare the ladder is safe.
Yeah.
What if we applied this forced vocalization to our own daily anxieties or our own perceived risks?
That is an intriguing application of the protocol.
Remember that physiological stress spike we talked about at the very beginning? The tunnel vision, the elevated heart rate, the brain scrambling to prioritize. The next time you feel that overwhelm creaking it at work or at home, what if you didn't just try to quietly think your way through it?
What if you actively spoke it?
Exactly. Would physically saying out loud, the situation is secure, or I have prepared for this presentation, force your brain to actively process the reality of the room?
It might just break the loop.
Right. Could simply hearing your own voice state the facts, break the panic loop, and trick your mind into performing with more confidence under pressure? Maybe the secret to surviving our own daily gauntlets isn't just knowing internally that we are safe, but actually forcing ourselves to hear it out loud.